Master Lost Sectors have been a part of Destiny 2's endgame content since Beyond Light, and unfortunately, for the most part, once you have already gotten the expansion exclusive exotics, there really isn't much other reason, other than exotic farming of course, to play the Lost Sector on that difficulty again, as you'd have a much easier time getting exotics from random world drops. So with that said, I came up with an interesting challenge for myself. Can you beat a Master Lost Sector solo flawlessly without ever firing at the enemy? Let's see how it went. I started build crafting to take on this seemingly dauntless challenge. Looking through all the different classes, it was obvious which class had to be used for abilities, and that was the almighty Creon Eaters, the Titans, and more specifically, the Shoulder Charge. So I started with Striker Titan for two main reasons. One, to take advantage of the Arc Burn modifier on the Lost Sector, and two, Well of Ions for increased arc melee damage. I ran Insurmountable Skullfoot here as my exotic as I wanted high ability uptime for ability spam. I had Hands On for more super energy on melee kills, and Well of Ions as mentioned earlier on my helmet. I had Striking Light on my hands, mainly for its second ability which states that you gain damage resistance against combatants while sprinting. I had Thermal Shock and Void damage resistance and Protective Light on my chest piece. I had Invigoration and Absolution for melee and ability cooldowns, with Elemental Charge to be charged with light from picking up Elemental Wells on my legs. And lastly, I had Double Outreach for melee cooldown, and Radiant Light for the increase in strength on my class item. But that didn't turn out well when I encountered the first major obstacle of the challenge, Champions. Now for those unfamiliar, Champions are easy if you know how to use appropriate guns to stun them and exploit their various weaknesses. But I can't shoot, and thus I have no ability to stun them. So what can I do? Well, nothing. I couldn't do enough damage and had to reset. Well, going back to the drawing board, I realized ability uptime isn't necessarily more important than raw damage, so I decided to run Peregrine Greaves to make my shoulder charge absolutely busted. On a different helmet, I was still running Hands On for that sweet super energy, but I was also now running Melee Well Maker to create elemental wells matching my subclass on powered melee kills. I still stuck with the same hands armor as before, and now on my chest piece I had swapped out Protective Light with Elemental Charge. On my legs, I'm now running Peregrine Greaves, and I had Heavy Handed, which allows me to regain half my melee energy after using my charged melee so long as I was charged with light. Lastly, I still stuck with the same class item that I had loaded with before. Well, it worked, and I was even able to kill a raider in one hit. Keywords: a raider. And here's where I ran into the second obstacle. Now typically, raiders are equivalent to most sniper enemies in Destiny, where they can almost one-shot you with pinpoint accuracy, especially in high-end content. But for some odd reason, as discovered by Selfu, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, raiders are doing more damage than they're supposed to do in said high-end content. In short, if all their sniper hits connect with you, you die. And you may be wondering, why am I bringing this up now? Why hadn't I realized this before? Well, ever since the change to all Titan shoulder charges, Shoulder Charge, or should I say Seismic Strike, on strikers blinds enemies in an area on hits, and having that high uptime meant chaining enough Seismic Strikes to completely negate potential snipes. So I had to reset again, and again, and again, and again, and so on. Also, I had brought in Salvation script partway through so I could erect stasis walls to block snipes if needed. But more on this later. After this defeat, I realized something else. Normally, if you needed just a little more damage, stasis could do the trick, as it will simply increase the damage frozen targets received. Normal builds exploit exotics like Cryosthesia or Aggro Scepter to slow and eventually freeze targets, but I couldn't use those, as they first required kills to activate such abilities. And that's why I had with me Salvation Script. Now, Salvation Script is typically overlooked because of how poor it performs in the grand scheme of things by launching stasis crystals instead of actual bullets. but it turned out to be a run saver. Or so I thought. But at the time, the simple freeze by launching crystals beside champions allowed me to cross the major hurdle of damage and take out the first Overload champion of the Lost Sector. Here, I decided that I was going to push onward despite failing the flawless run, so I could try to find a solution for my next major challenge, that being the Unstoppable Champions. Moving onwards, I was now met with the said champions, which went well, but that's okay. I'm here to test the limit of the build I was on, and just continued onwards. I had actually realized before dying that the Unstoppable Champions actually aggroed to the stasis crystals and began attacking and breaking them, causing them to deal damage. Now, I was fine with this on overloads, because they could heal, but since Unstoppables can't heal, that wasn't fair in my mind, so I had to think of some new rules. Well, not before finishing this Lost Sector first. Now, 6 hours in, I decided on the full rules for this run. 1. I cannot shoot with the intent to damage enemies, meaning to say, I can only shoot to draw aggro, but as you will soon see, the risk of bullet ricochet being present mainly forced me to shoot at walls. 2. I can only use Salvation's Grip as a means to make small barriers for protection and non-offensively. 3. Use of supers, if any, is fair game. 4. Standard rules, which is no deaths or reset. With rules 1 and 2 in place, I had to figure out another way to kill the Overload champions at the start. While for the Unstoppable champions, I just had to use a grenade and go every chance I get until I was sure it could be one-shot with my shoulder charges. With that in mind, I moved over to the Hammer Titan, mainly because Hammer Strike had the highest base damage, and secondly, the Infernal Whip champion mod, so I could stun and wouldn't get one-punched by the Unstoppable champions. This idea was short-lived, however, seeing that Hammer Strike 2 was insufficient to kill the Overload champion. Another quick session to the drawing board, then I realized something that would definitely work if executed correctly. 6.5 hours in, and I realized I could make use of the Sentinel Titan, and here's why. 1. I would have access to Void Grenades that can not only stun Overload champions, but also weaken enemies trapped within. 2. I would have access to the Offensive Bulwark aspect, allowing me to have high grenade recharge time and increased damage on my melee ability while I have an overshield. And 3. Bastion. I don't think it really needs an explanation, it gives an overshield. With these 3 factors in mind, I set off once more to the arduous journey of build crafting, and we now arrive at our current build. Offensive Bulwark and Bastion have been mentioned earlier, but with them I'm using Echo of Exchange, where melee final blows grant grenade energy, Echo of Remnants, where lingering grenade effects have increased duration, and Echo of Undermining, where void grenades weaken targets. With these, I'm also running double hands-on and melee Wellmaker on my helmet. I'm using the same hand armor with Striking Light. I'm using double Thermal Shock with Elemental Charge on my chest piece. I'm using the same Peregrine Grease with Heavy Handed. And lastly, I swapped out one of the Outrage mods for Overload Grenades. It worked, and I could knock out an Overload champion with ease. But then I accidentally got killed, so I had to reset again. But by now, I was on my 9th attempt. At 7 hours in, it was time to start the run. So I sped along the Lost Sector, and after swiftly dispatching of all the raiders, those pesky annoying snipers, I managed to slam into the Overload champion, killing him with one blow. Easy. Now I had to spawn 3 more Overload champions and repeat the blow 3 more times. Alright, that was simple enough. So, I am now at arguably the longest part of the Lost Sector, that being dealing with the Unstoppable champions. Now, I have no means of stunning them because I'm using a Void subclass and I can't shoot, so the only way I could deal with them is to toss my Vortex Grenade whenever it was fully charged. That meant throwing the grenade and running like a scared child all the way back to the start of the Lost Sector, because there were very many times where I feared that I would get caught out by these Unstoppable champions and just get pummeled entirely into oblivion. In fact, there was one time where I was so tempted to draw the Salvation script because I thought the Unstoppable champion had chased me all the way to the start of the Lost Sector, and if that happened, I knew there was no way out for me. But It ran away. Mercifully, I was able to kill one of the unstoppable champions with my super, before bravely attempting, and succeeding, to use the shield bash on the other unstoppable champion, which was low enough. Then it died. Fortunately for me, because if that didn't work, I would have died. But I think at the time I was getting a little bit impatient, because, well, 40 minutes had elapsed. So now I'm at the end game, alright? So what stands between me and absolute victory is one witch. A Hive Guardian witch to be exact. So this witch can throw a pulse grenade that will kill me in one shot. This witch has Storm Trance, well, more akin to Chaos Reach because a single zap can kill me in one shot. So this was my plan. I was gonna pop my Vortex Grenade on the witch to debuff her, apply my Bastion Barricade to give myself an overshield and increase my damage. So now, I was gonna shield bash her into oblivion with the power of the Crayon Eaters themselves. Unfortunately, I've tried this and I realized that, well, I think throwing a grenade first was not the way to go because it almost absolutely ruined me when the boss moved in front and nearly caught me out. I went back and re-strategized. Of course I didn't die, fortunately. And I came up with a new strategy. So, new game plan. Pop Bastion Barricade and then the grenade. That way, I will be able to see exactly where the witch goes. Easy, right? So, I went to shield bash the witch. And to my surprise, it didn't die. It only took slightly more than half health. Fortunately, a few seconds later, my super meter filled. And without any hesitation, I ran out there with my super and slammed that witch into the wall. After which I sent its ghost off into hell, and now finally, 42 minutes and 18 seconds in, I finally did it. I completed the Lost Sector solo flawlessly without ever firing a single shot at the enemy. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. It took me a long time to make, consecutive 8 hours actually, of non-stop Lost Sector grinding to actually complete this, and another couple of hours in Premiere Pro to actually edit this out. Yes, this is pretty interesting challenge that I issued to myself. I'm quite new to challenges like this, and honestly I thought of something even grander. If you notice the build, I actually wanted to try melee only, but that idea was short-lived when unstoppable champions came into the picture, because there was no way I was gonna survive after hitting the unstoppable with the melee, since they could just spam their ground slam. Anyways, I thank you guys for watching all the way to the end, and let me know if you like to see other challenges down below. I'm open to some challenges, but try to keep it like within the realm of possibility. If you guys want me to try like taking a white weapon to a Grandmaster Nightfall, I'm gonna burst your bubble by saying that's not gonna work, because you probably won't even be able to enter the Grandmaster Nightfall, because 1575 requirement, if I'm not mistaken. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.